Hey, what's up internet? My name is Nikki and today I will be doing a book versus movie review on The Black Phone. So I'm really excited to get into it today with this review, mainly because The Black Phone has been one of my favorite horror movies so far this year. So I can't wait to talk about it and tell you what I thought from its original content from a short story. So warning, this is a review, so there will be spoilers in here. So if you have not seen it, it is on the viewer's discretion. If you continue watching this movie, continue watching this video. So also, just to throw out a side note to this, I am one of those people who do not actually believe that movies or whatever interpret they come from, inspiration or whatever, doesn't have to exactly follow the book page by page whatsoever. I think it's just wonderful to see other people, how they believe these characters would have involved or whatever, and I just like a different view of it, if this makes sense. I am a big fan of this, especially one of my favorite points when I tell people this, when they tell me, oh, the book was better. Maybe, yeah, you're right. It probably is better because you get more information than probably what the movie could have done. But saying that, The Haunting of Hill House, the TV show, is actually, I believe strongly, is better than the book, mainly because of how the director and the writers interpret it, their version of what the events would have been in this time of age instead of the 1940s. So let's get into this discussion. Dun dun dun. Okay, so let's start off first with the book. So The Black Phone is actually a short story written by Joe Hill in his short story collection called 20th Century Ghost Stories. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I highly recommend it always, mainly because I love short stories and I can't wait to see if they do any more movies based off of his work from this book, especially Involuntary Committal, because that's my favorite story of all 15 stories in this book. So the fascinating thing that I always get about it is that The Black Phone is only roughly 20 pages, and how they were able to make a feature-length movie out of it is just amazing to me. I love short stories, especially just the open-ended concept of the short story. I believe the story behind this is Joe Hill was on a book tour. He was writing stories that were popping up in his head because people like to tell him scary, spooky things, and so he started collecting them and writing his own stories. The issue he had was he didn't know how to finish them, and so he was talking to his dad, who is, of course, the king of horror, Stephen King himself, and he said, why not just publish all of them in a short story collection and see how it does, because most people love open-ended stories. Just the fact is, you could think about them and go, what would they be doing right now? And so these short 15 stories kind of have that. Some of them do have somewhat of a dark ending, but it's not all lost. Well, anyways, that's what I believe. Highly recommend picking up his short story collection. I do believe they are changing the name now to Black Phone and Stories by Joe Hill. It has the tie-in movie poster of Ethan Hawke with his character's mask and hat, magician outfit. I usually don't like movie or TV show tie-ins to the books. I don't really enjoy them, but that one I might, just because I really did enjoy the poster of that. So now going into the movie, so this stars Ethan Hawke as the Growler and Mason Thames, I think that's how you pronounce his name, as Finney. I'm not gonna lie, when I first started watching this movie and I saw the actor who plays Finney in this, I really had this moment where I'm like, he looks familiar, and at first I was like, oh, maybe I saw him somewhere, but no, it's the fact that he looks like a young Heath Ledger, and I was obsessed with him back when I was a kid, especially when 10 Things I Hate About You, and I thought he was a fabulous actor, and the fact that Mason Thamson looks like him kind of just took me by surprise. So the movie says by IMDb is Finney Shaw is a shy but clever 13-year-old boy who's being held in a soundproof basement by a sadistic mass killer. When a disconnected phone on the wall starts to ring, he soon discovers that he can hear the voices of the murderer's previous victims, and they are dead, set on making sure that what happened to them doesn't happen to Finney. This movie was roughly almost 2 hours, a little less than that, but it's mind-blowing to know that they got most of the idea from a short story that was roughly 20 pages. So that is just amazing. The soundtrack in it was great. I really did love how they played music and through this to incorporate it with just the general what's going on. I don't mean just the background noise of like the suspense, like something's about to jump out. No, I mean mostly like using 70s music to kind of drive the story, because a lot of the things that was going on, especially when the sister is getting visions, it starts off with the whole music and just like the bad boy and just like something you know is not right. Sort of how they did in Insidious with the song Through the Tulips or something. That song still creeps me out, and it's not even supposed to be a scary song. So that's just crazy just thinking about it. Like, these are like well upbeat songs, and then you're like, oh crap, something's bad's gonna happen. So I did really enjoy it. Let's get into the big reveal. So the main differences between the movie and the book is mainly how it starts off. So you get a little bit more in depth of Finney's home life, of what he has to deal with, bullies, his alcoholic father in the movie, but in the story, all you really get is much of the fact that Finney is kind of scared of his dad, because we start off with him waiting outside of a convenience store waiting for his father because he got, I guess, in trouble for something. It's not really a big thing, just the fact that he's outside a convenience store where he ends up meeting the grabber. In the movie, you get the build-up of like the kids are somewhat terrified of the grabber, but at the same time he's just the big bag boogeyman that nobody actually believes, but has the superstition that something's not so right, that you might end up getting kidnapped yourself. The other big difference is the grabber himself, because in the book he's kind of told to be a guy who dresses up like a clown in it, which I kind of understand why they had to change it in the movie. I think it has to do with the fact that how Joe Hill describes him in the short story is that he sort of resembles John Wayne Gacy, the serial killer back in the 70s, which kind of makes sense because, well, he was a clown killer who kidnapped kids during his spree. So it kind of makes sense that he kind of put him in there. The other big difference in the movie versus book is in the book, his mother is alive and well. She's a little crazy because she's so terrified of Finney's sister, who has somewhat of a psychic ability. In the book, Finney has this thing about his sister where they're really connected, they've always had, and he makes it seem like they've always had like this special gift, but he doesn't think he has it. He thinks it was all due to his sister. But I think in the movie kind of shows like, no, because your sister has it, you might as well too. I think that's why a lot of the other kids did not hear the phone ring, because they didn't have that special so-called superstition gift of psychic powers or whatever you want to call it. Another thing about the big differences that I saw that I think made a big difference between the two is the fact that in the movie it builds up what kind of person Finney is. He's super smart, he's really into engineering, rockets, just everything like that. But that it's kind of just funny because during the 80s, it was during the Cold War, so it would kind of make sense, because if he's living in the 70s, the buildup of NASA has been going strong, and just the Cold War is coming, and so everything is about space. Because we get Star Wars during the 70s, so that kind of revolves around that timeline. So it's fascinating to see him being into it, because in the book, he doesn't have that kind of engineering. He kind of thinks of ways of how to escape. Big difference between the book and the movie is the book, the grabber actually blinds Finney. In the book, he chloroforms him with like a handkerchief or something, so he's able to kind of get on his feet a little faster, a little dazed. But in the book, he cannot see anything. He is blind. He's only feeling around, so that's why he doesn't believe what is currently happening to him is real. He thinks it's just a crazy dream due to an accident he had. So overall, these are kind of the big differences that I feel like impacted the movie and the book very differently, because I feel like if they kept Finney sort of blind, it wouldn't have progressed fast as they would. One of the other interesting things that I found between the book and movie is that we know there are certain kids that did not survive the grabber, and he kind of lists them off. In the book, he only talks to one of the dead boys out of all 5 of them. In the book, you kind of know that they're on the line because he hears other people talking to the main person he's talking to on the phone. So I like the fact that we get to actually, I don't really want to say see, because it's kind of depressing knowing what their fates are, but just getting more information about the other characters who help him lead up to escaping the grabber. So it was really cool, because in the book it ends with the whole ending in the basement. If you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. Nothing else happens afterwards. It was just more of the line of, I think this is for you. The one thing I did wish they did was give us more information about the phone, of how it came to be, like what it really was, what was going on. It was just a fascinating character itself, just because you can't, even though it's not an actor or a human being, the phone was a character all on its own, because it even says in the book and shows in the movie that it was actually breathing at one point. So knowing a little bit more about that character would have been cool, but I kind of get it. It was sort of like a doorway between the living and the dead. So what did I think? Who won this round of book versus movie? Obviously, that's kind of obvious. It has to be the movie. Mainly because the short story doesn't give you that much background whatsoever. The movie does. So if you wanted to read the short story mainly because you wanted to know more, I'm sorry to inform you, there is not much. I did love the fact that they kept most of all the lines from the grabber from the short story into the book. But then again, it wasn't a lot of lines, so it was kind of helpful putting it into the movie. I did enjoy just the fact that we get a little bit more of Finney. He seems like more of a character that you want to root for. Granted, in the story you do, just because he's just a kid who got kidnapped and you don't want anything bad to happen to them. I mean, if you do, you're kind of a psychopath, you know. Also, the fact of the music choices and just the acting style, it was just great. Highly recommend this movie so much. And also, if you're a Stephen King fan, you might actually get a few little Easter eggs about Stephen King references. I think Joe Hill has a lot of fun of poking fun at his dad, and I think they enjoy doing that to each other. So if you catch my drift, let me know what Easter eggs did you catch from Joe Hill's writing, and also just stabs at his dad. So let me know what you think of the short stories or of the movie. Did you watch it? Did you like it? I'm kind of just interested to see. And if there's any horror movie you think I should watch this year, let me know as well. Or any horror books to go with it as well. So that is it. I hope I catch you later. Wabam!